15 years back, my BF hooked up with my BFF. My fam hid it from me, so I bolted. Now mom's pushing me to patch things up with them. Hey everyone, I'm still pretty new to Reddit and honestly, I'm still figuring it all out. But I really just want to share my story. I had no clue there were so many awesome people on here, and I'm really grateful for all the advice I got. This is a long story that really started some 15 years ago. It really impacted my life, so please bear with me. I 33F. Back when I was 18 and cruising through my senior year of high school, I thought everything was going just peachy. I lived with my parents and 4 siblings, 2 older brothers 23 and 22, an older sister 20 and a younger sister 14. Most days were spent hanging out with my ride or die bestie, Ashley also 18, and my boyfriend of 3 years, Kyle who was 20. Here's the thing about Ashley and Kyle, our families were tight, like best friends since diapers tight. We did everything together, holidays, birthdays, random visits, you name it. Ashley had been my partner in crime for a solid 18 years, and I trusted her with my life. Our parents used to joke that we were joined at the hip, and honestly, they weren't wrong. As for Kyle, well, I was head over heels. We were serious, talked about marriage serious. Even though I had plans for university, I was totally cool with the idea of being Mrs. Kyle and a stay-at-home mom. My parents adored him, and life felt pretty darn perfect. Oh, and fun fact, my 20-year-old sister was dating Kyle's older brother. So yeah, our families were basically one big happy clan. One day, right at the start of the school year, I noticed Ashley was acting super down and distant. After some gentle prodding, she dropped a bombshell she was pregnant. I was totally caught off guard because I had no idea she'd split with her boyfriend a while back, let alone that she had someone new in her life like that. I asked her who the dad was, but she kind of dodged the question, hinting that it was her ex. She was in pieces, so I didn't push it. Instead, I just tried to be there for her. I stuck by her side when she spilled the beans to her folks. They were disappointed, sure, but they promised to have her back no matter what she decided. They were keen to know who the dad was, but Ashley shut that down quick. She made me swear to keep quiet about her past relationship her folks didn't even know she'd dated before. For the next 9 months, I was her rock. I tagged along to all her appointments, held her hand through the tough times at school when people were being jerks about her being pregnant, helped set up the nursery, and was there whenever she needed a shoulder to lean on. We did the whole shebang: ultrasound, baby shower, shopping sprees. Heck, I even took parenting classes with her. We picked out baby names together, and she even asked me to be there when she went into labor. It was tough on her, no doubt. I could see the toll it was taking, physically and emotionally. But I did everything I could to support her. She was my bestie, always there for me, and I loved her to bits. About 2 weeks before Ashley's due date, I headed to the mall to run some errands and bumped into her ex. Now, I'd promised not to reach out to him, but knowing how messed up Ashley was feeling got me all worked up. I let him have it, telling him off for bailing on her while she's pregnant and not giving a damn about their kid-to-be. He looked totally blindsided and swore he had no clue what I was talking about. Turns out, Ashley never clued him in about the pregnancy. When I mentioned she was due any day, he straight up said it couldn't be his because they split over a year ago and they hadn't been together since. I was baffled but apologized for causing a scene in the middle of the mall. Then he got all snarky, dropped some nasty comments, and even hinted that I should ask Ashley's buddy Kyle if he's the dad. I brushed it off though. Kyle and Ashley have been pals forever, and we were all tight-knit because of our folks' friendship. But there'd never been any hint of them being more than friends. Later that evening, me and my little sis, she's 14, were gearing up for a movie night. I couldn't help but vent about the run-in with Ashley's ex and his words. Usually my sis is quick with her opinions, but this time she clammed up and ducked off to the bathroom. So I figured I'd grab some snacks from downstairs. That's when I overheard her giving our mom an earful. Now this part's kind of fuzzy in my memory because I was all over the place emotionally. My sis spilled the beans to mom about me running into Ashley's ex and what he'd said. Then she dropped the bomb she didn't want to keep from me anymore, that Kyle was the dad of Ashley's baby. I swear I nearly fell over, stumbled into the kitchen and demanded an explanation. Mom and sis went pale as ghosts, and my sis just burst into tears. Talk about a shocker. My sister spilled the beans, plus I heard some bits from other folks later about what really went down. Turns out, towards the end of summer break, Kyle and Ashley hit up the same house party, got wasted, and ended up hooking up. Ashley wound up pregnant, and they both felt super guilty and scared to tell me. They didn't spill the beans to our folks either, but Ashley couldn't keep it under wraps and blabbed to her parents, who spilled the beans to Kyle's folks, and then it got back to mine. And all this drama went down in Ashley's first trimester. By the time she hit her second trimester, all our siblings knew except me. Man, you can imagine how I felt. I was a mess for the next 3 days, physically sick and couldn't even bring myself to talk to anyone. My folks were all sorry, but they reckoned they were trying to spare me the hurt and not mess up our tight-knit fam vibe. Kyle and Ashley kept blowing up my phone, trying to talk it out, but I shut them down. Kyle's mom even swung by our place, and my mom let her into my room. But I was just lying there, drained from all the betrayal, and didn't say a word. Fast forward 2 weeks and Ashley's in labor. My folks filled me in tough delivery. She lost a bunch of blood, had to have an emergency C-section. And apparently Kyle was there for it all. I was a wreck, couldn't be consoled. Betrayal from both of them, missing out on being there when I'd been looking forward to it for ages. It was a whole mess of feelings. My older sis bolted to the hospital to be with her guy, and my other sibs weren't around, so I was stuck at home with the folks. Rough times, man. All I wanted was to curl up in bed and have a good cry with my mom. But then my mom got a call from Ashley's mom. She popped into my room and dropped the bomb that they were heading to the hospital. I was kinda stunned and asked her to stick around, but she said Ashley's folks needed all the support they could get and we'd chat later. I tried to beg her not to go, said I needed them too, but she hit me with the whole "don't be selfish" thing and off they went. So there I was, home alone, trying to wrap my head around the whirlwind of the past few weeks. Couldn't believe my folks were off helping out someone who'd hurt me so bad while I was here feeling like trash. Was it wrong for me to feel that way? Before I knew it, sadness had morphed into full-blown rage, the kind I'd never felt before. So in a fit of mixed-up emotions and feeling totally betrayed, I started packing my bags, ready to bolt. But then I stopped, sat down in the living room, feeling totally hollow inside. After a bit, I got a text from my sis. She spilled the beans. Ashley had popped out a healthy baby girl, and they'd named her Sarah, the name me and Ashley had picked out months back. Then came another text saying my parents and sis were tagging along with Ashley's and Kyle's folks for a celebratory drink at some bar in town. The rest is kind of blurry in my memory. I just left, hopped on a train and got the heck out of there. Ended up crashing at a hostel in Phoenix for a spell. Landed a gig at a store and figured I'd finish high school there. Meanwhile, my folks, Sibs, Kyle and Ashley were blowing up my phone. Mom even left a bunch of frantic voicemails, practically ordering me to come home. They even reported me missing, but being 18, it didn't go anywhere. Anyway, not long after, I crossed paths with Dean. He's 21. Guy had his own family drama going on, just like me. Dean and I hit it off pretty quick and became tight pals in no time. Man, did he help me out when I was struggling. I was totally clueless about adulting, had no idea how to take care of myself or anything. But Dean had my back. He hooked me up with his crew, helped me finish up high school, and even let me crash with him and his buddies. I was a mess at one point, dealing with a ton of pain and regrets. I wanted to see a therapist real bad, but there was no way I could afford it. Dean was my rock through all of it. Honestly, without him, I don't think I would have made it through. After about a year, we decided to take our friendship up a notch and started dating. Dean had a windfall from his grandpa and decided to dip out to the big city. Even though we hadn't been together long, he asked me to come along. I was kinda hesitant. We both had a ton of baggage, and I wasn't exactly feeling secure in my situation. But I took the plunge anyway. We packed up, found jobs, and just tried to make it work. Then, right after my 21st birthday, we got hitched. Yeah, it was wild and totally spontaneous, but we went for it. I enrolled in uni, and Dean helped foot the bill. He started up his own gig, which took off, and suddenly, we were living more comfortably. I was juggling uni and a part-time gig to chip in. We had our fair share of rough patches, but somehow we pulled through. After uni, I joined forces with him in his company, and we slowly built it up together. Looking back, I don't think I was head over heels for Dean when we got hitched. I mean, I loved the guy, but it wasn't that head over heels kind of love. But he was there for me through thick and thin, always had my back. And today, I can't imagine loving anyone more. He's my rock, my everything. We've been married for a solid 12 years now, and we've got 2 little dudes, a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. Sometimes I get a pang of regret about leaving my fam behind, but going back just wasn't an option. It hurt too much. Felt like my folks picked Ashley and Kyle over me. Ended up hitting up a therapist when I hit 25, trying to sort through all those emotions. Last year, right when the pandemic hit, I got this email from a 14-year-old girl named Evelyn. Turns out she's my niece. Yep, my older sister's kid with Kyle's brother. She knew about me and wanted to connect. I was kinda iffy about it at first, but we ended up swapping some emails. Just so you know, she had no clue about the whole drama from 15 years back, so our chats were pretty innocent. We talked about her school hobbies, and she filled me in on my family tree. Turns out, I've got a whopping 10 nieces and nephews. Through our emails, I found out Kyle ended up tying the knot with Ashley 4 years after I took off, and they popped out 2 more kids on top of Sarah. And get this, my folks kept on cozying up to Kyle's crew like nothing ever happened. Felt like my whole fam just kept on trucking without me. Evelyn tried to dig into what went down, but I didn't feel like it was my place to spill the beans, you know. So I just shrugged it off, saying relationships change, life happens, yada yada. We kept shooting the breeze every now and then for almost a whole year. Then come January, Evelyn drops another email talking about how the pandemic's whacking her family hard. My folks were on the ropes trying to keep the house, and both my bros had lost their gigs, struggling to make ends meet. Kinda blew my mind that a 14-year-old was hip to all this, but hey, tough times will do that. Plus, it was stirring up some serious drama between her folks. All this hit me like a ton of bricks, stirring up a whirlwind of guilt and regret. Plus, I just had my own little one, so you can imagine the roller coaster of emotions I was riding. Had a heart-to-heart with my hubby, and he was all in, saying he'd back me up no matter what. Luckily, we were sitting pretty financially. Pandemic didn't really rock our boat. So after chewing over the deets and chatting with Dean, we decided to throw some cash toward helping my folks keep their roof. About a week back, me and Dean hopped on a plane and flew back to my old stomping grounds. First time in 15 years I'd laid eyes on my fam. Talk about a roller coaster of feels, regret, pain, betrayal, you name it. And I reckon my folks were kinda relieved to see me, though the vibe was just plain weird. We had this long heart-to-heart, decided to give this whole cordial relationship thing a shot. But man, it's been so long and I'm feeling super awkward around them. Sometimes they feel like total strangers. Me and Dean stuck around for a week, still trying to figure things out. I was starting to think maybe we could actually patch things up, keep it friendly but distant, you know. Then my mum drops this bomb. She wants me to sit down with Kyle and Ashley, try to go back to the way things were. I straight up refused. I mean, I've moved on, got no ties with them now, and I sure as heck ain't keen on digging up old wounds. Told Mum I was down to give rebuilding bridges a shot, especially for the sake of my niece, but I wasn't budging on the Kyle and Ashley front. Didn't ask her to cut ties with her pals, but I sure as heck ain't interested in a reunion. Dean's got my back on this one. But then Mum hits me with a guilt trip, calling me selfish and saying I gotta fix our fam. Well, I shut that down real quick, told her it's her call whether she wants to make amends. She was like, cool. But then 2 days later, I get a call out of the blue from Kyle's mom. How she got my number, I have no clue. And she's laying into me, saying I gotta talk to Kyle and Ashley, cause my returns messing with their mojo. Hung up on her and gave Mom an earful. Turns out she'd given Kyle's mom my digits, thinking it'd help heal the fam rift. I told her she's picking them over me yet again. She got all teary-eyed and started calling me selfish. Well, I had enough of that and hung up. Been days now and I ain't spoken to any of them, though Mom and Kyle's mom keep blowing up my phone. You know, I've been mulling over this whole situation and I gotta admit, I'm starting to second guess myself. I mean, sure, I think I'm doing what's best for me, my hubby, and our kiddos. Dean's been my rock through all of this, even stood up to Mom for me. But now I'm wondering if maybe I should give Mom's idea of talking to Ashley and Kyle another thought. Was I blowing things out of proportion 15 years back? Am I being selfish by not trying to patch things up? Honestly, I'm feeling kinda lost and could really use some advice or just someone's opinion on what to do next. It's got me questioning everything, you know? Update. 2 years later. Wow, time flies. It's been a whole 2 years since I spilled my heart out here. And let me tell you, a lot's gone down since then. Can't cover it all without turning this into a novel, but here's the scoop. First off, a massive shout out to all you amazing folks who've been sending me love and updates. Seriously, y'all rock. Now onto the update. So remember how I didn't mention my little sis in my original post? Turns out her relationship with our folks hit rock bottom after I split, and she went full on no contact when she hit 20. But guess what? Our oldest sis passed me her number, and after a bit of awkwardness, I mean it had been 15 years, we started chatting again. She was pretty peeved when I first left, but we've patched things up since. Life's thrown her some curvy balls, but she's got a toddler and a bub of her own now. And let me tell you, those kiddos have been the glue bringing us back together. She's more than just my sis, now she's my confidante, my ride or die, and we're in touch every single day. As for my other siblings, I keep in touch with both my bros, though we're not super tight. My older sis and I, well, we've had our ups and downs. Last year, we hit a rough patch and went silent for a while. See, she's hitched to Kyle's bro, so our whole fam drama hit her pretty hard. But we're all good now, and I've got a solid bond with her kids. My nieces and nephews are awesome. Skipped out on my niece's B-Day bash though. Just felt like it'd stir up too much for me. Now to my parents. This one's a bit of a sore spot, got to admit. Even writing about it feels like diving back into that crappy emotional pool from when I was 18. Mom wouldn't let up about me not chatting with Kyle and Ashley. I'm talking months of her nagging, even after I got back home. It got to the point where it felt like straight-up emotional blackmail. She'd lay on the guilt trips, blaming me for not fixing her friend drama, her health woes. She even accused me of keeping her grandkids away from her. Then, last June, I had my daughter, and that seemed to push her over the edge. We're talking over 100 calls a day, text every 20 minutes about who knows what, updates on folks I couldn't care less about. And when she started pestering Dean too, that was it for me. I was too scared to block her, so I had a heart-to-heart with Dad. Must have been the first real talk we'd had in like 17 years. I was just drained, emotionally wrecked from looking after 3 little ones and just fed up with it all. Poured my heart out to him, but he doesn't talk much about what went down after. Her calls started slowing down, and then in August, he went and filed for a divorce. Dad and I chat now and then, but things will never be the same between us, I reckon. Mom's taking this whole situation pretty hard. Her calls reached peak crazy town in August, and it sounds like I wasn't the only one on the receiving end. I ended up changing my number, and since February, she hasn't been able to track me down. One of my bros mentioned she's dealing with anxiety and depression, and she's lost a bunch of friends. Not sure if she's still hanging with Kyle and Ashley's crew. Honestly, I'm done with her drama. The stuff she said to me about me and my hubby, who she barely knows after 15 years of zilch contact, is just nuts. Sure, I wish things were different with my mom, but trying to patch things up would be like throwing my emotions into a black hole. No thanks. As for Kyle and Ashley, I've gotten a few calls from Kyle's mom, like I mentioned in my earlier post. Blocked her, and it's been crickets since. No clue what they're up to these days, and I've had zero contact with them. The only wrinkle in the whole saga is this letter my Bill Kyle's bro brought me back in August. Supposedly from Ashley. Haven't cracked it open yet, not sure if I even want to. Feels like I've moved on, but then again, curiosity's got me wondering what she's got to say after all this time. But who knows? Opening that could dredge up a whole mess of bad vibes. But hey, things are looking up on my end. Got my babies and Dean by my side. That guy's a champ, seriously. Just focusing on my fam and hoping this whole mess is in the rearview. Update 2, 1 month later. It's been a wild ride since I last dropped an update. I've been getting loads of messages from you awesome folks with advice and support. Seriously, you rock. Can't thank you all individually, but just know your words mean the world to me. Trying my best to get back to everyone, but it might take me a hot minute. Got a bunch of common questions floating around, so here's the lowdown. Nope, haven't cracked open that letter yet. Soon as I updated, I hopped back into therapy, and me and Dean figured it'd be best to hand it over to my therapist. Let him decide if and when I'm ready to dive in. Still radio silent with Mom. She's been hitting me up on Facebook, and even Ashley's mom slid into my DMs at first, let me tell you. Didn't even read the latter, actually went ahead and deactivated my Facebook for a bit. Kyle and Ashley haven't tried to slide into my DMs either. Only thing I know is Kyle was sniffing around my Bill for my deets, but Bill shut that down quick. That's when Ashley passed him the letter. Bill's keeping his distance from the fam right now. According to Bill, Kyle and Ashley are split, but whether they've officially called it quits, who knows. Last week, Dad swung by town. Dude's never been to my place or knows where I live. First time in almost 2 decades, we had a real heart-to-heart. Got to admit, it was a lot to process, and I wasn't feeling too hot for a few days after. But necessary, you know. Learned a bunch about Mom. Folks have been speculating there's got to be something in her past to make her act this way, and what went down between them, finding out about Ashley's bun in the oven and my return 2 years back. It's a whole can of worms, and I'll probs be in therapy for the long haul. Lots to unpack, so I'll drop a separate update on that soon. Oh, and about my little sis. She's totally off the hook, never blamed her for keeping that secret from me. She was just a kid, and Mom laid on the pressure thick. Life for her after I split was rough, and Mom was a real piece of work, blaming her for all sorts of stuff. Update 3, 2 months later. The bullying stuff with Ashley kicked off once she got pregnant. Our state's pretty old school, so folks weren't exactly throwing confetti for her being pregnant, unmarried, and flying solo. No physical harm, but people were downright mean, constantly reminding her of her so-called mistakes. Don't know if they knew who the dad was, I just figured they guessed because she had a bun in the oven. Dad dropped a bombshell that they weren't getting cozy beforehand, but who knows if that's true. Apparently she had a thing for the guy, so it wasn't your typical drunken hookup with just anybody. Would have floored me back then, but I kind of figured without anyone spelling it out. Her ex had his suspicions. They weren't an item at the party, but he never really vibed with Kay, so seeing them together was like waving a red flag. Neither of us were party animals, but they decided to hit up that shindig that day. Can't recall if they went together or solo, but I'm guessing the latter. She had other pals who dug a night out. Booze-wise, don't recall them being hardcore drinkers. Leastwise, never saw her sloppy drunk or losing her marbles. Didn't buy into that bit much, but then again, I wasn't there. Booze or no booze, betrayal's betrayal. Caught wind of some text from Kyle back then. Ignored all the calls and whatnot. Haven't uttered a peep to them since I found out he was the dad. Sometimes think I should have given Em a piece of my mind, laid out all the hurt, then gone radio silent. But back then I was a hot mess and sick as a dog. This latest letters from Ashley, still haven't brought myself to read it. Think Mum's grieving the loss of that tight-knit fam and friend circle we had when I was a kid, plus some other relationships. Trouble is, she hasn't clocked that none of her 5 kids talk to her or see her. None of her grandkids either. None of us, as far as I know, are on speaking terms. That'd be a deal breaker for me. Can't even imagine the headspace she's in. We're all on board for therapy or counseling, but she's waving that idea off. Dad and Big Bro tried, but you can't force someone like that. Update 4, 2 months later. Honestly, I couldn't tell you if they were head over heels for each other before all this went down, or if it happened just once or more. They claim it was a one-time deal. Figured she might have had a thing for him, but I chalked it up to us being tight buddies. They pointed fingers at each other, only skimmed through a couple of their messages, never actually talked to them. Got the scoop from my sister's dad, you name it. They seemed pretty desperate at the time, especially A. Tied the knot when the kid was, 4 or 5? Heard they're not together now, but that's about all I know. Hope Kay didn't stray. Wouldn't wish that mess on anyone, especially with 3 kiddos in the mix. His texts? Pretty standard stuff, I guess. Begged me to see him, chat with him. Went on about love and not splitting up. You know the drill. Didn't read him all. Showed up at the house twice that I know of, but my big bro showed him the door. He was all frantic in texts and from what I gathered in person. I was just bummed out and kept pouring her heart out in long texts. I get that some folks don't get why I just ignored them, but I was really sick and torn up. Barely functioning for a couple of days. Sometimes I wonder if it was a one-time thing, just a slip-up. But that one slip-up snowballed into a months-long deception. While she was carrying his kid, she let me keep on dating him, making plans with him and her. My hurt and anger aren't so much about the cheating, it's about being fed lies for months, and if my sis hadn't spilled, who knows, maybe for years. No jealousy, I reckon. No comparing looks or people saying, oh, A's better looking, no, E's prettier. I do sometimes think that maybe it was just a one-time thing, a slip-up. But that one slip-up turned into a months-long deception. While she was carrying his kid, she let me keep on dating him, making plans with him and her. My sadness and anger aren't so much about them cheating. It's about being fed lies for months, and if my sister hadn't spilled, probably for years. Got a new number now, and apart from my immediate fam, excluding my mum, nobody from my old life has it. So Kay's mum calling me shouldn't be possible. She wasn't worried about me, just like my mum. She insisted we mend fences with everyone and claimed my presence was wrecking their marriage and causing issues all around. Unlike my mum, she was totally on her daughter's side. Now about the dads. Mine was mostly hands-off in the whole situation. Don't know much about the other dads, but let's just say the moms are calling the shots in these relationships, and they're all pretty assertive women. As for the perspectives of others, if any of them wrote their own story on Reddit, they'd probably get a heap of sympathy, and maybe folks would see me as the problem. Just the other day, I got a ton of comments from a user defending her and even accusing Kay of rape. They went as far as calling me a pedophile despite us all being 18 plus and just saying all sorts of nasty stuff. So yeah, that's my point.